Hello and welcome to On the Kerbs. I'm your host, Timo Hours Daily. Joining me this time is Italian rally driver Maria Paola Fiorio. Maria is a fascinating woman who, having come from a family entrenched in motorsport, spent a significant portion of her life becoming a professional athlete in golf. However, after many years of this, she did step into the family business and has become a racing driver in her own right. We talked about if this switch to motorsport was inevitable, why she became a rally instructor, what her grandfather, the world-famous Cesare, has taught her, her ambitions for 2024, and a whole lot more. It was a really enjoyable and immersive talk, and I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. Hi Maria, thank you very much for being here today. First of all, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm good, thank you. How about yourself?
Very happy to hear that. I'm not bad, thank you. And I always like to start at the very beginning when I'm talking to people, because it's always very interesting to see what your answers are going to be. And you're going to have a very unique one, I think, in this one. So, what first got you interested in motorsport? Because it probably seems obvious to some, but not everyone knows.
So, what I like to say is that I never got interested in motorsports. I was basically born in motorsports. As you know, and most of the people that know my last name, my grandfather is perhaps one of the most important people in the history of motorsports, especially in rally racing. And my father is a rally driver himself. So I guess I was, let's say, not very interested at the beginning of my career because I was a golf player. I was a professional golf player. And then all of a sudden, I realized that golf was not my passion and that my passion was actually in my blood, and it was motorsports.
I'm going to have to ask about the golf though. Was that a rebellious thing? Just like I'm just not going to go to motorsport. It's not for me. I'm not going to do that. Or was what? Why golf? There's so many different sports. I'm intrigued. Why golf?
So basically, golf was the dream sport of my family. My dream sport is racing and motorsport. My family always had golf in their head. My uncle wanted to become a professional golf player. My father wanted to become a professional golf player before becoming a driver. Actually, also after. And my grandfather himself is the one that brought them to the golf course the first time, and he was actually the president of one of the really good golf courses we have in Italy. And it's something that it's a sport that they always admired. They admired very much the etiquette. And I think they never told me this, but it's what I understood. Golf is a well-paid sport, and motorsport, as years went by, stopped being a well-paid sport and started being a gentleman's sport. So I guess they wanted me to have that competition, real athlete, let's say, path, which I am super glad I did, because a lot of things I did in my life and my career are thanks to golf. And if I have this mindset today, it's because I've been through golf.
It seems like if your family or one member of your family chooses a sport, everyone else gets involved.
Yeah, basically. um, well, I think is for most athletes. Once you're an athlete, you're always an athlete. So if you are an athlete in golf, then you can be in any other sport, because you know the mindset. And in sports today, the mindset is everything. 80%.
And how long did you do golf for then? What kind of how far into it did you get before you decided, motorsport actually, I think I want to do this instead?
So I started when I was about 11, 12 years old.
Mm.
And it was just for fun at the beginning. And I got really good really fast. And the national team saw me playing when I was 14 years old. So they called me in, and I
Damn.
represented Italy for the national team from when I was 14 to when I was 18. And then I moved to the States where I got a full ride with school and played for the NCAA where I was second in the nation. And
You just went
after
and had a
graduating,
whole last career in there, didn't you?
you know what? When you're doing it for fun, I was doing it for fun.
It's not a
It
bad place to
was
get to just on fun, though.
it's not. It's not. I guess I had a little bit of talent because I did not like to practice. Compared to all the other players that were in my teams, if it was the national team, the school team, whatever it was, everybody knew everything about golf. Everybody used to enjoy training and everything. I was the one that
You
loved
just wanted to
going
go and
out, and
play.
I was gonna go play, and I didn't watch TV. They didn't watch like tournaments or stuff. I was
Hmm.
playing just, and I always wanted to like bet on something, we weren't supposed to, but like bet like a drink or something, a
Hmm.
little bit of spice to it. And then when I graduated from college, I decided to turn pro. I was pretty much set to turning pro and getting my card, my status on the tour. And my tournament, there's a tournament where you get your status and you turn pro. And when I was there, I was physically there, but mentally I was in another place. I didn't want to be there. I realized that that was not what I wanted for my future. That was not how I saw myself. And if I asked the question back in the days, how are you going to see yourself in 5 years? That was not it. So I realized that there was no point for me to keep on doing that. And so I decided to quit.
I suppose it's one of those things as well where when you don't necessarily not take it seriously, but when you're having that approach, like you're saying, you're there for fun, not for the competitiveness, too much of it in terms of principally you're not obsessed with it. You then perhaps perform better because you're not taking it as seriously. So I wonder if that was maybe part of how you got so good so quickly because you weren't putting that pressure on yourself. Oh, I've got to be the best at this. There was just a natural bit of competition there rather than piling itself onto be I need to do this to do this to do this within the golfing world, and then like you say, maybe that's why it was easier for you than it would be for other people to at that point later on decide I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, I guess you're right up to a certain point. As I mentioned before, sports is 80% in here.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wasn't there mentally,
Mm.
there was no point for me to stay there. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, I had fun at the beginning, of course, but then after a while, I did not have the passion to continue.
Mm-hmm.
My passion was somewhere else. And then I figured out that my passion was in motorsports.
Do you think it was inevitable then that you'd become a rally driver?
Um, at the beginning, I didn't know. And this is because I always felt a lot of pressure with my name.
Mm-hmm.
So I, I don't want to say I was scared to disappoint somebody, but more to disappoint myself.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
I'm carrying a huge backpack on my shoulders and you don't want to drop it. So I guess at the beginning I was just like, yeah, I'm going to be in this environment because it's what I want, it's what I like, but I wasn't so keen to be an actual driver. And then I sort of got more and more on track, and it was closer to the cars, and I was closer to the steering wheel and closer to the pedals. And then, it's just like a magnet. I'm like, okay, now I need to.
How long was it before, oh, sorry, between finishing with golf and having that final step where you realize, okay, I need to actually, I can't just look at the cars and do all this kind of, I need to be in them doing that. Was it a short process or was it a bit longer?
It was actually well, it depends how much you long or short. Let's say that 2017 was the year I turned pro
Hmm.
and the year that I quit. 2018 and 19, I didn't do much. But I did kind of like work. little like, jobs here and there and motorsports and stuff. I guess that my actual thing for becoming a driver exploded during COVID.
I'll say perfect time for
Exactly.
it.
Had nowhere to go, nowhere to drive, and
So I have all the
I guess
points in motorsport history for you to decide that you want to get into it. It's the 1 year where everything's pretty much impossible to do.
exactly. I guess my brain started actually working in that moment and saying, "Hey, this is what you want to do, and this is how you do it." You know.
Maybe it was partly because it was the one time you couldn't do it that you suddenly wanted to because you couldn't do it.
Maybe. I think it's more because I was able to concentrate a little more on myself, other than everything that surrounded me.
That makes sense as well. You're going to say there's a lot of time in that period where you don't have too much else to do, so you kind of are forced to do that a little bit anyway. So when you
Yeah,
embrace that, then you don't know where that's going to lead you.
and I had a chance to stay more with my family. I always lived abroad, far away from my family. So being with my family, having like direct contact with my grandfather, him telling me all his stories and everything, perhaps lighted up that light that I had inside since I was born, but I never knew I had.
So you've been racing now for a few years. I'm intrigued about if you've got a favorite moment that stands out to you the most from that time so far.
So it's so how to explain. Basically, I I started off with some talent shows
Okay.
on track, and because I actually thought track was my thing more than rally racing, and but I started no experience whatsoever, and all of a sudden they call me like, you're in the finals. I'm like, what do you mean you're in the finals? Like, I never did anything before. All the people I are like kart drivers or did something, rally drivers and stuff. So how is it even possible? And they're like, no, you have to come to the finals and everything. So I feel like I was very proud of myself when I was the first lady to be in those finals. And but most of all, I did another talent show, which was again on track, but more like rally because the track was kind of like adjusted for rally racing. And I had the best time overall during the day, also against all the boys, against everybody. So I guess that was maybe my focus point. But if I really have to think about a moment that was emotional for me, was after my first rally driving course, which I did with my father as a coach. And he, at the end of the driving course, he told me how proud he was of my driving skills. And that was very emotional for me because the last time that he told me how proud he was about my skills was when I was playing golf at a professional level. So that was it was a big win for me, like
Yeah. Definitely reassuring as well that the nerves from before, like you were saying about you don't want to disappoint when it comes to having the name attached to you and everything. You know that he's not just going to say that just to make you feel better. He's going to say that because he means it.
exactly. Plus, whenever he told me anything about golf, I would tell him, "Hey, shut up! Like I'm the pro here, you're not." So I'm listening to my kind of sense. But when it's about motorsports, if he says it's white. That's it. I'm never gonna like complain about it.
And just going back slightly to those talent shows, just for people that might not know, because it can be a bit of a niche thing. What is actually involved for you as a driver? What do you have to do in these talent shows and then to get to a winning stage for that?
Okay, so basically the first The first talent show I took part in was called GT Talent. So we're talking about a talent show which the prize is a GT competition. So there are different selections over the year in different tracks. And the year that I participated the tracks were in Italy, and it was 6 selections, where the first 2 winners, let's say, of these trials that you have during the day go to the finals. And this was 2022. In 2023, they expanded, and they are now also in France and Spain. So their selection criteria is divided in 3, and one is skid test. So basically, the car is raised on the back, from the back, and with like smaller wheels. So you have a very loose rear. So you have to go through this little, let's say, between the cones, in the least amount possible, at least time possible, without putting down the cones, and having this rear dancing behind you, which is very, very fun. Actually, that's my favorite. Then you have a simulator. The track is the completely unknown. So you get there that you have no idea which is the track. So it's a surprise for everyone. Obviously, there are people that know every track by memory, so that's something. But that's part of the competition too, you know. And so obviously, best time on 3 laps counts. And the car that they use for the simulator is the same car that you get to use if you win the competition, exactly. And the final step is the driving on track. So basically, on the track, they pick a section that is obviously the least dangerous section of the track, that you have to do in the least time, like as fast as you can. The quickest, exactly. So that was actually, I was really good at that. I really gave like 100%. It was really fun too. Like those were my 2 favorites, obviously. Simulator, I have fun with the sim, but I like better
the real thing is
real
better.
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, it definitely shows that it was your favorite stuff, because you got pretty far with it, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I like changing. Today I like more the skid. Tomorrow I like more the track. You know, it depends also on the conditions. The skid gets really hard if you're not on a flat surface. If you're like a little inclined, then it gets harder. But what I like to think, and this is something that comes from golf, is that it's the same for everybody. I find it straight, everybody finds it straight. You know, if it rains on track, it's raining for everyone. It's slippery for everyone. But yeah, I like when it rains, though.
I think you just like a challenge.
I do, and I actually had the chance to. Last year my father, as a gift, gave me driving course, on ice driving course. So that was really, really fun. And I was able to get a little bit of more ability on slippery surfaces. So it was really fun.
What would you say then, on the flip side of that, has been the most challenging thing for you to overcome so far?
I feel like every day is a challenge. So finding the most challenging one is hard. So I guess that right now I am in the process of preparing this season. I'm gonna debut with an actual rally in May in Italy, in southern Italy. And obviously, to me, finding sponsors is one of the hardest thing ever, because I don't have an actual resume that is big enough to bring, hey, this is who I am. This is what I can do. So you have to like convince sponsors on nothing. You don't have like, yeah, I have a few things, but it's not like, it's hard for my father that is a world champion, and racing is one of the most expensive sports in the world. So to me now it's a lot about, okay, I know I want to do this. I am finding the way to do it. I need to find the budget, obviously, and I want to keep on going. My project is keep on going and have the possibility to be one of the fastest women in racing.
I think you've definitely got that capability on you. There's no doubt about that. It's just, like you say, the opportunity for it.
I hope so. Like, you never know. But that's what my intent is. That's what I'm gonna work for, and I'm gonna put all my heart in it, because I'm sure that when you do it for yourself, because a lot of times we tend to do things for other people and we don't give 100% of ourselves. So if this time I really want to do it for myself, prove myself that I am good, that I am fast. So that's what I'm gonna do.
So I think that's the right approach to take there, and it's that age-old thing. If you don't even think that you can do it, then why is anyone else going to think you can? Why would they then give you any money for it? So you definitely need to be thinking you can do it.
Exactly.
If I've done my homework correctly as well, you are also a Rally University instructor. So I'm curious about how this happened and why you wanted to do this.
So everything started as a game with my father. So the Rally University is not just rally racing, use of the car and the correct driving. So while we were playing with our pandas in the 4x4 in our gravel track, my father realized that what he was teaching me, I was able to teach to other people. So I started realizing and actually recognize the mistakes and the problems in other people's driving skills. And I feel like one of the main issues right now is that a lot of people believe they know how to drive, and they tend to go really fast on the street, and especially young people. And we wake up every morning that we read on the newspaper that there's a fatality of young people dying because of a car accident. So I feel like there is a need for us to bring our knowledge to those that need it. And everybody needs driving knowledge, especially if you have a driving license. So, and it's not just to go fast, it's just to understand how the car works, how it reacts to the different weight exposures and the different forces. It's actually like physics, so my whole thing of becoming an instructor, first of all, I have great fun being an instructor. I love it. I love my the people that are learning from me. They give me a lot of joy seeing them learning so fast Also young ones. I taught a girl that was 14 years old, and she didn't know what a clutch was. And by the end of the day, she was driving better than any other guest I had. So it's a pure joy. And again, I feel like myself becoming a rally driver will give me that extra knowledge that I can give to my guests.
Going off that as well, you've kind of set up a perfect segue for me there. If you take a look at your social media, for example, it's clear that you spend a lot of time with your grandfather. So I'm curious about what he's taught you that stood out to you the most.
He taught me how to be smart. That's it. I feel like that's the most important thing. If somebody really listens to all the stories, I promise I'm gonna do something in English as well. He speaks English, so I am going to do something in English
That was going to be a
eventually.
question at some point, yeah.
He was the one that read the regulations, the rules and regulations, and found the missing part. He didn't read it just for the
Just to
know-how
know
of
it,
the
yeah.
race. It was he read it to find what was missing in it, and he always found something. And that's how he was the best at his job. You know, he always found the way to get through. He always found, because at high levels, we're talking about not even seconds. We're talking about decimals. You know, like we're talking about cents. You know, it's nothing. So you really have to find your way, and that means being very smart. So I guess this is the biggest teaching he ever taught me. Be smart, be on top of everything, know your things. That's the
Read the fine
words he
print.
used, like know your stuff.
No, I mean, it's a good lesson to be taught, and to, like you say, from the approach and everything that you've been doing with everything else you've been doing, it suddenly comes across that you've learned that lesson.
Well, you know, I am
Or at least the
learning it. I
practicing the
wouldn't.
lesson. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a process, because I'm sure we have something in the family. I call it the family gene for sure. But as everything, you need to practice, and you need to give it time, dedicate a lot of passion, a lot of sacrifice. And for sacrifice, I don't mean like, oh my God, it's a hustle. I mean, giving it everything for real. Um, it's all about making the things. I like to think of life as a circle. So making everything going around, you know, like stick together in a one way or the other.
So I'm not surprised you said circle there, just given tires and cars. It feels like an automatic association there, but that's probably just a little thing. I also wanted to ask, you mentioned earlier on that you're going to do a rally in May, which is your first thing of the year. What other plans or ambitions do you have for this year and generally? Is there kind of like a bucket list of a few things that you want to tick off in your motorsport career, or are you just taking things as they come?
So I like to take things as they come. This is kind of being part of my character. But obviously, with rally racing, you need to plan everything a little ahead. So I feel my ideal plan would be starting with the championship of the zone. It's called the zone. So
Okay.
the Italian championship is divided in zones, which are basically areas around Italy. And so start with my area, and so get experience, because this is a teaching from my father, not from my grandfather. And my father always says rally racing is experience. So I'm going to start with a small car. I'm starting with an N2 group.
Mm-hmm.
So small car, because that's another teaching from my dad. You start with small cars, and then you get to bigger cars, more powerful cars. But first, you do your
Got to
experience with
work your
small
way up.
cars. Exactly. And that's how you get to be really, really fast and really, really good. You don't start with the powerful cars because that's the car going and it's not your foot going. So um if you want to become a good driver, a fast driver, you start with the small cars, with the least powerful cars, and you go as fast as the fast ones.
Hopefully it'll feel a little bit fast at least, even if it doesn't look like you're going that fast.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I'm testing it end of April.
Hmm.
So that will be fun.
No, definitely looking forward to that. And I think it's interesting to always see some of the similarities with people's stories with saying about going from the small cars to the big cars, but for different, not different reasons necessarily, but it's all kind of for the same end goal, but they're just approaching it from slightly different ways. It's kind of like you know that you want to be driving the Ferrari, for example, but then you have to start off in this tiny little box car and like I just I don't want to have to do
But
this,
if
but
you
I
think
have to
about
do this.
it's the same with skiing, you know, you don't start with the black slope right away. You
No,
start
no,
with
well, you
the
shouldn't.
blue slope, and then you get to the red slope, and then to the whatever, and then you get to the black, you know. It's a step by step. And that's what sport is. It teaches you to be patient. I had zero patience whatsoever. Thanks to golf, I was able to learn what patience was. And patience is something that I feel like everybody in daily life should learn a little bit. But especially in sport, it
Mhm.
gives you a lot of help, definitely.
And then beyond that, have you got any events in mind, any big events where you're thinking at some point it would just be nice to do that, even if it was just for the experience? I think if we could look at rally, for example, there's always the ultimate thing of Dakar. Is that something that you'd just like to do for the saying you've done it, or are you just focused on, like you say, just building up the experience first and then see what happens rather than having something like that?
I'm not one of those people that love saying things, oh, I've done it. No.
Okay,
Um, no, not me. If I would go to the car, it's because I want to win the car. So that
fair
means I
enough.
have the preparation to go to the car and I have
Mhm.
the skills and abilities to win the car. So right now, that's not in the plan.
Mhm.
Um, so eventually, perhaps it might be.
Never say.
Um, never say never. That's, yeah, I would go with that.
Oh, fair enough. I'm curious then, if you could race in any car in any rally,
Oh,
what
I have to add
combination?
something to
Go on.
the question before, actually. I do have a dream race, though,
Okay,
which is Monte Carlo race.
that's an understandable one to have. I can see why that's there.
So, but again, it's like I feel like for rally racers, rally drivers, Monte Carlo is perhaps one of the favorite races ever, more than Dakar. But it's also the toughest. So
Yeah,
again, before getting into Monte Carlo, I'm gonna try and obviously is one of my long-term goals. But first, I'm gonna do it my experience. You know, like right now, I'm just like I'm not like a little girl anymore. I'm already a grown up, but at the same time, I like to feel like I'm a little girl entering this world and doing my
you don't want to skip any
actually
steps in preparing for it.
exactly, you know, like I was taught that you have to have long-term goals, short-term goals, and work towards these small goals little by little to get to your ultimate goal.
That makes sense. And like you say, it's nice to have part of one eye maybe on the Monte Carlo thing. Is kind of like there is an end goal, but again, it's not the worst thing in the world if you don't get there soon or if you don't get there later. It's just it happens when it happens, and you know that everything you're doing will build something that's going to be helpful for something later on, and even if it's not that, it'll be helpful for something else that comes along.
Exactly.
With maybe I know part of the answer to this now that you've said about this dream race, but if you could race in any car from history and in any rally, what combination would you choose?
Well, the rally would be Monte Carlo, of
I
course.
thought you might say that now.
So this is a very tricky question because one
Well,
day
you've already
I
done
wake
half
up,
of it.
it's a really hard question. One day I wake up that I would love to try the 037. One day I wake up that I'm like, oh, imagine racing with a Delta S4. Or imagine racing with a Delta Integrale.
Mm.
But because we are in modern era, I guess right now I'd love to be in a Toyota.
I'll say that's a common answer I get with rally drivers. It's always the Toyota.
I just saw the person, like just saw it was a few months ago, the presentation of the Toyota, and it was wow, emotional basically.
And again, like before, never say never. So maybe
Never say
that's what
never.
it's all building to.
Maybe when I get there, the Toyota is not going to be as performant as it is now, so I'm going to change my mind. But right now, that's the goal.
It'd be the weird thing if you're doing that rally in that car, but it's a historic rally rather than a modern one.
Yeah, that would have been weird.
A couple of fun questions to finish off, then not motorsport related at all. Do you have a favorite film? And this can't be racing related.
It can be or can't be.
Can't be because I feel like that'd be cheating.
Okay. Well, I'm going to open a parenthesis.
That didn't take long.
There's a movie called Race for Glory that is now out in
I have
theaters.
seen this.
You saw it?
Yep.
Well, that's my new favorite movie regarding motorsports, but I'm going to close the parenthesis again.
It was a good advert for it.
I don't have a favorite movie. Again, I'm one of those people that I go by the day. So today I like one, tomorrow I like the other one. I love movies that are motivational, that represent true events. The latest one that I saw that I really liked was the one about the accident happening in the Ande between Uruguay and Chile.
I think. Yeah.
With the football team from Uruguay.
Yes.
That one, I don't remember the name. I think it's called the Snow Society or something.
That's the one. I was thinking, I know it when I hear it, but I couldn't think of it. And that's the new setup. That is exactly that.
It's because here in Italy we have I always watch movies in the original language. So I saw
but then the
in
title
Spanish.
changes depending. So
exactly. So I was like, how would that be? That would be the Snow Society. So yeah,
it's on my list. I've not seen it yet. It's on my list. I've not seen it yet, but as it's your flavor of the day, I should maybe get onto that soon.
Must-see, absolutely. I saw it recently, and it's really, really, really good.
And a final question then: do you have any guilty pleasures?
I love chocolate.
I love how serious your face went there. It's just there's one thing.
And that's something that I got from my grandfather as well. We're like chocolate monsters. Literally, like every day he comes to me, and I'm on a diet right now because after holidays, obviously.
So that's going to get tricky around Easter.
Well, yeah,
maybe
it's really
hard. Yeah. I was going to say, you thought about that for a second, but no, I can't lie. It's going to be difficult.
It's really hard for me. Chocolate is one of those things I cannot say no.
I can't blame you. I can't blame you. It's very understandable. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I feel like there's a lot more we can go into, but we'd be here for hours and hours, and we might not have the time for that right now. So we might have to come back at some other point. But I want to wish you the best of luck for everything for this year. Looking forward to seeing how you get on in May, and I'm sure you can't wait to get testing in April. So I just want to wish you best of luck with all of that.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a real pleasure to talk a little bit about my little experience with this. I just want to add one more thing, and I mentioned before, I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm already a grown up. And this is also one of the kind of things I want to get through to people. Like, never give up on your dreams. So also, if you don't think you're young enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not whatever enough, don't give up on your dreams. Just try, and that's gonna make you happy. At least you tried, you know.
I think there's no better way to finish that episode off. I'm gonna have to cut myself off on that bit there and just leave it with you.
Well, thank you again for everything, and well, follow me on Instagram to see what's gonna happen with my race.
Yes, all of that. I will put details of all of that in the description below, and absolutely promote all of that when
And
this goes
again,
out.
I'll promise I'll do something in English for everyone.
Either that, or I'm going to have to start learning Italian, so it might come in handy at this point.
That is something. That is something. Well, Lewis Hamilton is gonna have to learn Italian, so I guess
That's true. The things I do because of that man. Anyway.
he does it all. So
He makes that's I won't go into that. We'll be here. We'll keep going.
it's gonna be like another hour chat. So.
Exactly.
Thank you again to Maria for taking the time to chat. Wishing her the best of luck for everything in 2024. Details of where you can find both Maria and I on social media and everywhere else will be in the description of this episode, so do go and check that out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again soon.